Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Course of World History. I'm your host, Mr. Samuelson, and today we are looking at the Ottomans and Trade to see how that ties into our overall Age of Exploration unit. Promise it's coming. So, essential question: how did the expansion of the Ottoman Empire result in the beginning of the European Age of Exploration? It's going to cover a lot more than just that, but this is our final destination. So, let's go. The Ottomans. The Ottomans are a Turkish group that were nomads in Central Asia. Now, like the Mongols and others, the Turks had lived most of their lives on horseback, and they were expert riders. They would ride in order to hunt and track prey over long distances, and this winds up being a really useful skill when you transitioned from hunting animals to fighting in war. They are experts on horseback and experts with both ranged weapons and pole weapons. Now, add to that gunpowder. Gunpowder was invented in China, and the Chinese used it against the Mongols, but not nearly as effectively as the Mongol use of it once they adapted Chinese technology for their use in warfare. And then the Mongols explode out of Central Eastern Asia and take this technology to the Middle East and use it against Arabs and Muslim communities in the Middle East. The Muslims then acquired this technology, gunpowder and cannon, from the Mongol people around 1240 AD. Now, fast forward to the siege of Constantinople. The Ottoman Turks have been around for a little while at this point, and they have taken this idea of cannon to a whole new level. And at this siege, they are able to bring 68 great Turkish bombards. Now, what are these? They are massive cannon that could fire a 25-inch stone ball over a mile. So from great distances, the Turks are able to just hurl these massive stones at the walls of Constantinople. And these cannon were actually constructed so well by the Ottomans that they continued to be used by the Ottomans for 350 years. Really well constructed, powerful weapons. Now, after the fall of Constantinople, the Ottomans continue their expansion. And pushing into Europe, they invade the nation of Hungary in that region of the world. Now, with the help of their cannons, they're able to overwhelm almost all of their opponents with great ease. Their one significant struggle was against this little territory called Wallachia, where this particular individual, Prince Vlad Dracula, was in charge. And he had a significant military victory against the Turks, which kind of establishes his reputation in history and makes him somewhat famous to this day, where he captures a Turkish army and impales all 23,000 captured Turks on poles as a warning against the Ottomans to not try to invade his territory again. Well, the Ottomans don't take this warning. They do invade a second time. They defeat Dracula, who then has to flee that territory, and the Ottomans take over. So, sorry, Dracula, but we'll still remember who you are. All right. So the Ottomans have now broken into Southeast Asia, and will continue this expansion until a Ottoman civil war erupts in 1509. And this really halts them on their way to trying to conquer Italy. Now, in 1512, a new sultan is crowned, takes over the empire, but he shifts the direction of the expansion of the Ottoman Empire. He no longer wants to push into Europe, wants to expand into the southeastern direction instead. Now, in 8 years, Sultan Selim I is able to conquer Syria, is able to conquer Jerusalem and Egypt, and also push back against the Safavid Empire, which is encroaching along the eastern flank. So Selim really does push the Middle East, North African approach to expansion of the Islamic Empire. He's then followed up by the rule of Suleiman the Magnificent. And under Suleiman's rule, the Ottoman Empire really truly explodes. Suleiman will conquer all of North Africa, or almost all of North Africa, and is also going to win 3 wars against the Safavid Empire on his eastern flank and push his borders all the way through modern Iraq, far to the east of where they were. The Ottoman Empire then starts to look again at Europe. And they're mostly successful at expanding into Europe, push much further than they had earlier. But they fail at the Siege of Vienna in 1683. This will be the furthest that the Ottomans make it, but they do make it to, Austria, Central Europe. In this battle, the Ottomans take on the might of the Holy Roman Empire, and they're deep within Europe. And here they face off against about 100,000 European soldiers. The Ottomans have an army that is larger than the Europeans, but their problem here is that they're stretched way beyond their supply lines. They're not able to reinforce themselves very well. They can't get supplies to Vienna very well. And this is a siege. They're supposed to be attacking the city, but the city itself winds up being better supplied than the Ottoman army. And the Ottomans eventually do have to retreat, pull back from Vienna, and this event really does stop about 300 years of Ottoman expansion. So the Ottoman Empire had spent 300 years expanding. They now control a large territory. They control most of the Mediterranean Sea, Red Sea, into the Persian Gulf. They're a huge empire, but they had relied on conquest, of conquering opponents, in order to gain money. They got a lot of their wealth by taking it from the people that they conquered. Now they're going to have to focus on a different sort of income in order to maintain this huge empire. Now, internally, the Ottomans will do this by focusing on their agricultural wealth. Once the Ottomans capture Egypt, they become the largest supplier of food in the Mediterranean, so they can sell some of this food in order to gain wealth. But mostly they're going to focus on taxation, and they're going to increase taxes on agricultural land. And this brings in a lot of their money. But of course, people don't like paying taxes, so this will lead to some problems. The Ottomans also control a lot of trade. Right? The east-west trade routes of the Silk Road pass entirely through Ottoman territory. You can't have trade between Europe, India, and China without passing through Ottoman lands. Now, this will be profitable for them because they will tax these goods. And it is a profitable trade. They're going to trade with the Venetians, who sit right here in Europe, who then sell those goods. But pushing these taxes does not make people on either side of the Silk Road all that happy. And it starts to slow some of that trade. The greater the taxes, the lower the profit for others. Additionally, the Ottomans keep fighting these wars with the Safavid Empire right here. And those wars are going to make trade inconsistent, make trade expensive. When there are soldiers around, you need to defend your stuff a little bit better because the soldiers might take it. And this all serves to increase the cost of trading along the Silk Road through the Ottoman Empire. And nobody on either side really appreciates that, especially the Europeans, who have no other access to these goods. So the economy starts to slow. Europeans aren't buying as much goods through the Silk Road. Taxes aren't coming in as much. And so the economy in the Ottoman Empire starts to decline. The middle class is struggling to develop because of government control. In the Ottoman Empire, the government was so powerful, they could control trade, they could tax heavily, and they did both. And it just made it so difficult, particularly for Europeans, that they felt like they either couldn't or didn't want to deal with the hassle of trading with the Ottoman Empire anymore because of all the government rules around trade and the high taxation. This has the effect of really shutting down the Silk Road, Ottoman government control and taxation. So once the empire, the Ottoman Empire again reaches its greatest extent, they had to rely more on trade at the exact same time that this taxation of trade is driving people away from the Silk Road. Europeans just get fed up and start to give up, particularly the Portuguese and in a moment the Spanish, who start to look for sea routes instead. They don't want to deal with the Ottoman Empire and this difficulty of trying to do the Silk Road. So they look for sea routes and they start to sail around Africa instead. And once these sea routes are established and Europeans realize they don't have to deal with the Ottoman Empire, trade really starts to drop. And this leads to more and more problems. There's no more opportunities for expansion, less income from trade. The Ottoman Empire starts to go into a long, slow decline. Because I'll tell you, Biggie, I'm sorry you're wrong. It's not mo money, no mo problems. It is, in fact, no money, mo problems. And that is why the Ottoman Empire slips and why Europe starts to eclipse first the Ottomans and then the rest of the world in their advancements and their wealth. That's all for today. I do hope that you learned something and that you'll join me next time. Farewell.